Minister Farrakhan, let's begin by talking about the record. You've often referred to white people as devils. You've said many things, some of which we've just seen, which people don't like. And why shouldn't white America be just scared to death of you?
If we are afraid of truth or afraid of justice, then one would be afraid of one who speaks truth and cries out for justice. But if one seeks honest solutions to real problems and will find that solution in the truth, then there is no need to fear a man who speaks the truth and condemns that which is unjust and wicked.
But what about the language? Are you telling me the truth is that we whites are devils?
What is your definition, sir, of a devil?
What is yours?
I would say that a devil is a wicked person. And I don't think that whites in their relationships with blacks and dark people around the world have been good or saintly. Would you think so?
Do you think that white America is trying to practice genocide on black people?
If we examine the record, Mr. Donaldson, we see that whites in their interaction with dark people throughout the world have practiced a form of genocide. And this is why there were millions of Indians in America when whites came, and now there are just about 2 million left. There were millions of Indians in the Caribbean, and they're gone, and there were millions in South America, and they are going. And the Maori people in New Zealand, the Aborigines in Australia are gone. And so we see a useless population of millions of black people unemployed and unemployable. And America that has not taken kindly to persons who are useless, we believe is practicing a form of genocide on the masses of our people.
Do I take it, Minister Farrakhan, you don't believe in integration of the races? You really want separatism?
The religion of Islam teaches us that all human beings can get along well if we accept the principles and the practice of brotherhood. That has not been the case. The Kerner Commission in 1967 or 68 said that there are two Americas, one black, one white, separate and unequal. In 1988, the Kerner Commission looked back at the horrendous situation and said, not only is America separate and unequal, but the conditions are worse 20 years later. So it's not that I don't believe in integration. I do not believe that white America believes in integration.
You have said a few years ago that you wanted a place within America for black people, but your most recent statement is that you think black people ought to receive reparations and perhaps go to Africa, to a place there. I have two questions. How much reparations from the U.S. government? Who should pay for them? And what place in Africa?
If we want to solve the problem, Mr. Donaldson, we must recognize that there are millions of black people today who are suffering in America, and no one has come up with a solution to this problem. And yet, black people who have built this country, whose fathers' sweat and blood built the economy of the early America, and we who have fought, bled, and died in every theater of war that America has had, we helped America to rebuild Germany after World War II. Germany's rebuilt, Japan is rebuilt. Blacks are still in a terrible condition.
Well, I concede that, Minister Farrakhan, that you have helped build America, but so have Irish people who came here, Italians, many people from many lands.
Yes.
You seem to say that blacks ought to receive money from the U.S. government, reparations. How much?
If the American government sees that there is justice in giving to the Japanese reparations for 4 years in the concentration camps and the confiscation of their goods and property, what about black people who were brought to America, not on the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, or the Mayflower, but in the holds of ships, whose fathers worked for 300 years for no pay?
But what I'm asking you is how much? Tell us how much.
Well, I can't say in terms of dollars at this point how much, but if the government is willing to sit down and take account of what is owed black people, why should we live in substandard housing? Why should we be on welfare?
Anyone?
Yes, but why should we, who helped build the country, live in that condition? We're not asking for welfare. Give to black people what you owe us and let us make a future for ourselves.
You see, if I may, what I'm hearing, and I think what many whites are hearing, is not that people who built America should share in its prosperity. And people who don't have adequate housing should have adequate housing. But you keep talking about blacks should have it. Blacks should have it. That's divisive, isn't it?
I doubt that very seriously. I think that the world will admit that just the other day the facts were brought out that 25% of young black men are either in prison, on parole, or under court supervision. You have another infant mortality rate that is so sickening that they feel if it continues, we will lose another whole generation. Our people are dying with 60,000 excess deaths over the natural normal death rate. My point is,
whites are responsible for this?
If blacks are dying like this, and I represent the suffering of black people, why should that offend white people who have spokespersons for Italians, for Irish, for Jews? Why should anybody be upset that I speak for the hurt of my own people?
You talked about Jews in that litany you just gave us. Jews believe you're anti-Semitic, and why do they believe that? Because of what you said. We heard one example when you talked about their dirty religion, Israel and its dirty religion. What did you mean by that?
Sir, no sane, intelligent, spiritual teacher could ever say that the revealed word of God from the source of purity is unclean. That revealed word comes to those in the gutter who are unclean to lift them and purify their actions. But religion is not what people profess. Religion is what we practice. The state of Israel, I'm saying, practices deceit, murder, lying, and uses the cover of Bible and religion and prophecy as a shield for that dirty, unclean practice.
You condemn a whole state, everyone in it.
Oh, I don't say condemn everybody in the state, but I'm saying that the state, in my judgment, is illegal to take land from the Palestinians, give it to somebody else under the pretext that this is the Bible's fulfillment. There are 800,000 Jews in America who do not believe that the state of Israel was set up according to the divine prophecy.
Jews in America, Minister.
They're not anti-Semitic.
Well, Jews in America, you've often said that you think Jews have an inordinate influence in this country, particularly in the communications media.
In Mr. Raspberry's column in the Washington Post last week, he said, and I'm quoting him, that according to the Jews' numbers, they do exercise an inordinate amount of control and influence beyond their numbers. In the papers today, Mr. Carl Rowan talked about $3 billion going to Israel, that in the light of today's world events and the suffering of the world, some of those $3 billion should be rechanneled and reinvested back in America.
You say you're not anti-Semitic.
Does that mean that Mr. Rowan is anti-Semitic?
You say you're not anti-Semitic.
Certainly not.
So lots of Jews are good citizens, good people?
Of course.
Who are the ones you admire?
I can't say that I have a list of admiring persons among them.
Can you name one Jew you admire?
Oh, there are many.
Can you name
one?
When
I was a musician, I wanted to play as well as Yasha Heifetz, and he's one of the greatest that ever played the violin. There are many Jews that one could admire, but it's not the good things about people that we're talking about. The good takes care of itself. It's the evil that needs to be corrected and made good, Mr. Donaldson.
You believe that George Bush, the President of the United States, wants to have you killed. Why?
I believe that Mr. Bush, in his own words, sir, speaking before the Simon Wiesenthal Center in Los Angeles 1 week before he was elected president, said that he's going to continue funding the Justice Department in their vigorous investigation and prosecution of anti-Semites, whether they wear brown shirts, white shirts, and bow ties, whether they live in Skokie, Chicago, or Brooklyn, the villain is the same. And I'm sure when he spoke about white shirts and bow ties, he wasn't speaking about Senator Simon. He was, by inference, referring to Louis Farrakhan.
So you draw the inference he was referring to you, and then you make the leap that he wants to have you killed?
Sir, we just talked about death squads from South Africa.
You quoted the president accurately. He said he wanted to fight hate groups and anti-Semites. You said you're not an anti-Semite. How could he be referring to you?
the President Bush, when he
Yes.
was vice president, spoke against me as an anti-Semite. The U.S. Senate,
What was
with
that
no black
quotation?
people,
What was that quotation?
that no place in America is there for anti-Semites, bigots,
But you say
and
you're not.
racists.
You say you're not a racist and
This
anti-Semite.
country was founded on bigotry, racism, and
But you say
anti-Semitism.
Mr. Minister, I'm confused. You have insisted tonight you are not a bigot, you're not a racist, you're not an anti-Semite. But then you say because the President of the United States complains about racists and anti-Semitites, he's talking about you.
Sir, in your piece,
And he wants to kill you.
in your piece that you just showed, the death squads in South Africa, in a racist regime, have come against those who preach against apartheid. It is no accident that Martin Luther King was assassinated and the government of the United States had his rooms bugged, followed him about, tried to discredit him. It is not an accident that the counterintelligence program of the United States government under J. Edgar Hoover was a program designed to keep any black leader from properly addressing the concerns of our people, even to the point of assassination. And it is not an accident that the CIA planned and carried out the murder of several heads of state in the world. So let us not say that Mr. Bush and the government of the United States is opposed to getting rid of what they perceive as a threat. Right now, the government of the United States planned the murder of Muammar Gaddafi. That was the most expensive assassination attempt in the history of the world. And I'm sure, sir, the bombing of the PDF headquarters in Panama was a murder attempt against Noriega. And unfortunately, for them, they missed. And now Mr. Noriega is in America as an embarrassment to the Bush administration.
Let me ask you about your future plans. Do you plan to run for political office in this country?
Never.
Do you plan to support people who do?
I most certainly do intend to support those who advocate those positions that will bring more justice, more equity, and a balanced distribution of the wealth of America to those poor and suffering
Let me ask you about Reverend Jackson. You supported him in '84, but in 1987 you said you would not publicly support him because I guess you feared that you'd be an embarrassment to him? Or why? What about '92? If he runs, will you support him?
I can't say. That's a long way off, and Mr. Jackson has not said yet that he would run. But
Do you think you would be an embarrassment to him?
If he perceived it that way, and as long as there are programs like this, Mr. Donaldson, which will allow me a fair hearing before the American people, I believe that the American people will not see me as an embarrassment. They'll see me as a man who speaks the truth and has suffered on account of it.
Minister Farrakhan, thank you very much for being with us tonight. Thank you for sharing your views with us.
Thank you.